minus 35.
Okay, I'm back. I just found out that all I did was stuff up with pausing the recording by accident. I must have bumped my phone because that's when I found that I had to resume the other recording. But I didn't fully ruin the whole recording, so that's good. So now I'm doing a new recording and I'm just microwaving my dinner, and I wanted to update everyone on what is happening with my life. Just checking something. Come on,
Speech.
come on, come
Stop.
on.
Stop. Pause. Minus 4.
Okay, so I'm using the Braille Superstore to get various books. I'm getting the Left Behind Christian book series. After that, I'm going to start getting the Old Testament of the Braille Bible. And then after that, when I've got all the Old Testament, I'm going to get a couple more Braille cookbooks. So when I've got the cookbooks that I want, I'm going to start using them to make heaps of different foods that I can put in the freezer to eat later, like caramel tarts and all that. Or you can even pre-bake. Pastry tarts. So you make them, you pre-bake them, and then you put them away in the freezer. And then you make them into whatever you want to make them into.
Door open. Door closed.
Then I can make other desserts and put them in the freezer. If they need fresh cream or anything added to them, I can just at least start making the dessert. And before adding toppings and that, I can put it in the freezer. And I can have toppings later. I can add the toppings after I get them back out of the freezer. After that, I don't know what else I'll do, because NDIS arrangements have changed, so now I just get support workers as needed. I don't get a worker every single week, because I kind of do. It's like, if I don't want my support worker, I just cancel a shift, but I don't have repeat shifts going for 12 months at a time, because the NDIS has taken away the ability to hold funding for more than 12 weeks at a time. So you can only use enough funding for 12 weeks, and once you have used that up, you don't get any more funding for another, until your next 3-month period starts. So the money is in your plan, but you just can't access that funding. So I can only do up to 10 appointment shifts at a time. And when the particular period, which is 12 weeks, once that funding runs out, I have to wait till my next lot of funding is accessible to use. And so I'm pretty much just sitting around at home now. I just sit around because it's a waste of time trying to access the NDIS for anything remotely useful to living. So now, if I want to go out and I want to pay for something expensive, I make sure I've got the money to actually pay for it. If they say, oh, we want to take your NDIS funding, I just say, no, I'm not using the NDIS. I'll just find another provider who won't use the NDIS. If anyone says, why don't you use your NDIS funding for assistive technology, I just say, well, the NDIS doesn't work to make everybody happy. The NDIS is just insurance funding, and if I can't get the funding for assistive technology, then I just don't use the NDIS for assistive technology. It's not like the NDIS isn't giving me funding, so I might have to just sit down and die, you know. I'm not reliant on the NDIS for everything. You know, like, I've heard so many people say, oh, your NDIS funding can do this, it can do that. I'm like, no, it can't. You've got to actually tell the NDIS and ask for approval. You can't just use your funding for stuff. You can't just say, right, I've got $20,000, I'm going to use that $20,000 tomorrow and buy something. That is not how the NDIS works. So, I'm pretty much using support as required. I don't believe in weekly schedules. They're okay if you've got activities that you do every week, but unless there's actual activities that are repeated on a week-to-week basis, there's no reason for me to have a support worker every week. And then another lady who took me to my hospital appointment yesterday. She can see and drive, but she deals with other medical issues every day. She said just send feedback to the NDIA. So I sent some feedback to them today. I reckon the approach needs to change. At the moment, everyone gets funding in their plans based on disability assessment and whatever category they fit into, which is not fair, because one person will get $50,000 in their plan a year. I'm not just talking about core supports or capacity building money or whatever. I'm talking about total, amount of money in a plan. Say it's 50,000 or 80,000 or 300,000 or 500,000 or $1 million, right? Why can't the approach be changed so that people, no matter what the disability, everyone gets the same amount of funding in their plan, no matter what? And every single year, the money gets reset. Say you get $50,000 a year. Every year it gets reset to 50 grand, and you just start again. Let's say your condition worsens and your functional capacity in life gets worse, you need more than 50 grand, right? You get an assessment done and you might get $90,000 instead of $50,000, right? Or just say $90,000. Every 12 months it goes back to 90 grand, until you go, you know what, I need my funding adjusted again, or I'm happy to just keep it the way it is. That way you don't have to have a plan review. You only get a plan review done if you ring up and say, hey, it's been 6 years and I've been receiving 30 grand in my plan every year for 6 years, and now I need it adjusted because, I don't know, I think 30 grand is too much money. I think I only need 10 grand a year because I'm fine. Or maybe you might be the other way. You need way more than 30 grand. Like, say you need 500 grand because, wow, my disability is horrible now and I'm heaps worse than I was 6 years ago. I need 500 grand a year now. So do that. Get it assessed, and then the NDIS can increase the amount of funding you get, and you can say, no, that's not workable, I need more than that. And then you get, you appeal the decision and all that, right? Until you've got what you want, you say, okay, I want to keep it that way indefinitely until I need it changed again. For every single plan too, not just one person and different for another person. Make every single person's funding have the same price in it. Who cares if it's just blindness or deafness or heaps of other disabilities? Make it that every single person gets 100 grand in their plan every single year. If each person needs a different adjustment made, they should have to ring up the NDIA and get an assessment done and all that to adjust their funding. That would be way better. That would be heaps better. So I sent feedback today, and I then said I want someone to contact me. Then I wrote down my mobile number and email address. And I'm going to explain all this crap to them, and I'm going to keep doing it over and 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 over again until someone gets super pissed off at me, and then I'll just say, no, I should be the one being pissed off here. I'm the one that needs help. and then someone will start listening. And then I'll go to the GP and repeat myself every time until she puts me on more prescriptions over and over and over. Then she'll tell me several times to go to the hospital, and then I'll just start the process from square one again, repeat myself over and over and over and over and over until someone fixes the problem again. Because otherwise you end up getting nowhere. And I'm going to tell the NDIS I can't go to Costco and I can't go to several other places on my own, so yeah, I need money for that. So yeah. I definitely will be going after the NDIA until they fix their shit and actually make the funding easier to handle. Now, if people use up all that funding in their plan, well, bugger it. Maybe there's a decent excuse to ask for more funding early, maybe there isn't. But if people use up all their funding, well, if you can provide a decent excuse as to why you need more funding, do it. If you can't, you should probably be a bit more careful when you spend your money and wait till you got a new plan. Wait till your plan is reset again. And it should be like any other plan. If you've got a new plan in March, it should reset every year in March. If you get it in January, it should reset in January every year. If you have a decent enough excuse for why you need more funding early, like say you get a plan in March and you use it up by December, then the new plan gets approved in January. The new date reset is January. Every single January. Something happens, you want less funding or you want something to be adjusted, you get an assessment done. If it then gets changed, your new plan gets updated in, let's say, I don't know, we'll just say April. Well, the new reset every year can be April, every single year. Full stop, until you need it changed. Full stop. I can think of 101 ways to fix the NDIS, but that's only one of my examples, and I'm going to keep going after them until it is actually fixed. And then hope for the best. Now, the good thing about using up funding every 12 weeks is at least it stops you overspending your entire plan, because when you've used up your funding, you have to wait for a few more weeks for the funding to come back or for your new 12-week period to start. At least you can not overspend your entire plan early. So if you run out of funding and you've got to interrupt your supports, you're only interrupting it for like up to 11 weeks instead of waiting for 6 or 8 months to get more support. The problem I'm having with that is the NDIS doesn't even give you a chance not to interrupt your services. Like the NDIS says, get your funding in order early, so that way when you've got your funding for services, they don't get interrupted. But there's never any actual fail-safe way to stop interrupting services, because the NDIA, it doesn't matter which way it doesn't matter which way it sets up your funding to stop interrupting services, something will happen where the OT charges higher prices, say it's an occupational therapist, or you get sick and you interrupt your services for a week or two when you're sick. So then when you've got extra funding there that you don't spend, you've then got to try and use it all up somehow. So when you get another plan the next year or 2 years, whatever the plan is, whenever you get another plan, you don't lose whatever funding you don't use. The NDIS does not give it back to you, and that way you have less funding, so then you can't guarantee that you won't have an interruption to any of your services. The NDIS has no safeguard in place. There are literally no safeguards in place to stop interruption of services whatsoever. Nothing. Nothing in place at all. So you can have OT, occupational therapy, that is, 2 hours each month. But one day it might get interrupted because, there's no funding left there for that. Well, that's crappy because if prices don't change, or you're not, I don't know, if you're just not using your capacity building funding for something else. And that's the other problem with the NDIS, is if you need to use it for something else, you can't. So there's no guarantee that another support service that you need won't be provided. Like, there's no safeguards in place to stop interruption of services, and there's also no safeguards in place to provide new services if you need another service. So if you don't have another service that you want, you've got to get a new plan to get another service. I mean, seriously. You've got to get a quote from the new provider, and then you've got to get your funding adjusted to get the new provider, which means getting a new plan. I mean, how stupid's that? How honestly stupid is that? That's crap. So if I've got occupational therapy but I don't have physio, something happens and I need a physiotherapist, I can't just use my money for physio, funding for physio. You got to ring up, get an assessment done, wait for a new plan to be set up, then use that money for physio. I mean, seriously, that is such a stuff around. That is such a stuff around. Like, there's no safeguards in place for anybody with the NDIS. There really isn't. So, I'm genuinely ticked off, and I really think people need to have more flexibility, because the NDIA will say you've got flexibility to use your funding when you actually don't have flexibility. Like, I'm thinking flexibility means, okay, I'm going to use funding for support workers and physio and OT. The problem is, if I then want an exercise physiologist, I have to interrupt my OT service. So I can use my plan flexibly, but I can't be flexible with support services. You know, all this flexibility bullshit, it's a load of shit. If I could use my plan flexibly, I would not have an interruption to any services at all. The NDIA is a load of bollocks. these people who say your plan's flexible, you can do this, you can do that, well, they don't know what they're talking about because it's not flexible. Flexibility does not mean less interruption to services. It just means I can use some of my money for OT, but then if I want an exercise physiologist, I have to cut the occupational therapist and go with exercise physiology. You know, like, that's not flexible usage of an NDIS plan. It can be flexible because I can just stop using the OT and get an exercise physiologist, but then that's not flexible because I don't want to stop using the OT just because I need an exercise physiologist. Flexibility really means flexibility, and the NDIS is not very good at defining flexibility. It really isn't that good at all. So I'm going to start this feedback process for months. I sent one complaint in, I'm going to send another complaint in. I'm going to wait for this one to be resolved first. Might take a couple of years, but I'm going to wait for it to get resolved and then make a new complaint. Because I'm not too happy with how the NDIS is run at this time. The other thing that really shits me, and I know it's lack of understanding, but I'm sick of telling people. When people offer me new support providers, I'm like, I can't use them in my NDIS plan because they're not approved by the NDIS. When I've got a new plan, I have to get rid of my current support provider to get another one, and I'm not going to do that. I don't want to have more than one support provider. So I've decided not to fully get rid of this one just to get a new provider, because some of their stuff in their services aren't even approved for me to... God, how did I cut my little pinky finger? What did I do to it? What did I do to my hand? God, I must have bumped it on the knife blade without even knowing I've even touched the bloody knife blade. What did I do to it? Anyway, I'm sick of telling people that in order to change service providers, I've got to make sure that the new provider can provide me all the supports I need under the NDIS, because if they can't, I can't change over. And I'm also sick of telling people that when they offer me a support provider, it's assessment based. It's not, oh, my friend has this provider, that will be good for you too because they've got all the stuff you like in a support provider. Well, that person's friend has been assessed to need that provider, and they have specific services that they've been assessed for that I have not been assessed for. So, changing support providers isn't that easy. And You know, people think, oh, my friend has this deal. It's like, yes, because your friend has been assessed. They've been approved for that deal. That doesn't mean I have approval for that deal. It's like, oh, go and ask your GP for this medication for your cough because, you know, they've got me this drug and you could get it. It's like, no, those drugs you're talking about are assessment based, and just because you've been given a specific medication doesn't mean I get approval for it because you got approval for it. Everyone gets approved based on their assessments. You know, I can't just go to the GP and say, hey, I've got an annoying cough and my friend said she knows what it's like because, oh, she's got medication for it and I want to get the same medication, because the doctor would just be like, yeah, you and your friend have different reasons for your annoying ailments, so she's got her medicine. If it's working for her, that's good. We have to find something that'll work for you because you're not your friend's situation. You know, friends who say to their mates, go to the doctor and get this particular drug, like, come on, mate, it's assessment based. It's not the doctor playing favourites or anything like that. It's fully assessment. It's a case by case basis. You know, I've had heaps of people say, oh, have you got an allergy test? I'm like, no, because I haven't been approved for an allergy test. And when they go, why don't you ask your doctor? Because it's kind of none of your business what I ask my doctor. And if you're annoyed that I'm coughing too much, that's a problem you need to work through for you, because your annoyance is not about me. Your annoyance is about you. And yes, other people's ailments are annoying, but telling me that my cough is annoying you isn't going to change that I have a cough. You know, it's not going to change anything. I think a lot of ailments are annoying, but whinging about it's not going to change it. You know, if an ailment's really annoying, yeah, well, what's the doctor going to do about it? Say, oh, well, you can use the same medication that your friend is using? I mean, really, come on. I just think it's bullshit that I ask people, okay, why should I change over to this new provider? And then they show me the provider's website and I'm like, that's bullshit, because I don't have NDIS approval to change to a new provider. I can get a different provider, but I'll end up with services that aren't approved in my NDIS plan, so I'm not about to change providers. And the amount of times people have said just ring the NDIS and say you need X service, you want it approved. You can't just get a service approved. You've got to ring up an OT and get them to they've got to do a functional capacity assessment to get that service recommended. And then the NDIS won't necessarily approve that service. So I've given up on trying to tell people that they need to quit telling me why they reckon whatever provider is really good, because it's good for whoever has been assessed and approved for that provider. Yes, that's good. But I'm not going to do another assessment when I can just keep my current service provider and not do a new assessment, which I don't need. I'm kind of sick of dealing with people telling me what I want. I'm sick of dealing with people. Anyway, I'm going to get going. I am.
Speech off. -5. Pause. Stop. Button.
I am going to save this recording to the camera straight away. And I will be with you guys again very soon.
Stop. Button.